Hello, my name is Dale Adams from Planning Ahead of Time, and today I'm chatting with.
Jane McCourt from the McCourt Method.
Okay, so Jane, you and I actually met on a course specifically learning about how to help people with their end of life planning.
Yes, we did. And that was last year actually that I signed up for that. And I think, you and I both met each other on that course and we did some mentoring together, which was quite good actually to help us get through the process of the learning and how to sort of process all the information we were going through about end of life planning there.
Yeah, but obviously you were on the course because you'd had your own experiences with end of life, or certainly with diagnoses that would from a terminal condition. So
Yeah, I did. Yeah, sort of I had, well, the last 7 years have been quite tricky for me on a health front. I always considered myself to be a really healthy person. And in fact, in 2016, I went on a yoga juice fast in Portugal for 9 days. And I remember coming back from that thinking I was the healthiest I'd ever been. And then fast forward to the January the next year, I started feeling a bit ill and thinking I'd had avian flu because that was around in 2016. And it turned out 5 months later to be a burst appendix. So I ended up in intensive care and in hospital for a month, which was really scary and really quite tricky. And I had nothing in place of end of life planning. I think a lot of us go along thinking it'll never happen to us. So there I was in the hospital bed and probably not wasn't going to make it, but I did. And then I got a breast cancer diagnosis. Sorry, thankfully. Yeah, sometimes I wonder if it was good on certain days. Um, and then I got a breast cancer diagnosis 18 months later. So it
that's a
really,
lot in a very short period of time.
it is. And I also had I had my own guest house at the time, and it was all just getting too much, the health issues and everything. So but what it brought home to me after that was that I seriously didn't have anything in place for my end of life. I had no idea in terms of treatments or, what I might need there in terms of legals. I didn't have any power of attorneys in place. I had nothing in place actually. So I would have left my two sons with a big pickle to sort had I not actually come through this and out the other side. So hence I started looking into things about end of life planning, which is where we met.
Yeah. So if you're sort of going back to when that happened then, so the burst appendix, that's when at the time you weren't sure whether you were actually going to make it through that.
Mm. And the interesting thing about that was, as my children know, actually, because as a family, we're quite open about wishes and end of life stuff. We're quite happy to talk around the subject of death.
Yeah.
And I'm personally, I wouldn't have any organ donations or anything like that for myself or blood transfusion. It was something that I never wanted. And when I was in hospital with the burst appendix, the only way that I would actually make it through was to have a blood transfusion.
Wow.
So my initial reaction, and my youngest son was there and he used to come in every day. So I said to the doctor, no, I'm not having that. I'll just see where it goes. And my son just turned around and said, yes, you are. So even though he knew my wishes, but I didn't have anything written down. But so we ended up having this debate, me, the doctor, and my son, about should I or shouldn't I? And I think seeing my son's face and the doctor saying that, without having that done, then my chances actually of coming out of hospital were very slim. I capitulated and I allowed them to give me the blood, but that was all. I said, if it gets any worse, I'm not having any other intervention. So we kind of discussed it on the hoof then. And I have to admit, the blood transfusion did save my life. But I did spend many months wondering who was whizzing around my veins. And for me, that kind of thing does I don't like it, but as the doctor said, your blood changes and you discard old blood cells. So it's not like having an organ from
Yes.
one.
However,
So
if you think, had you written your wishes down, then what would have happened? Because the doctors would have possibly followed your wishes,
yeah,
and yet you changed your mind at the last minute based on the fact that it would save your life.
and that my son, it was my son sitting there with his face going, well, I don't want you to die.
Yeah.
So, this does put us in a very interesting end of life phase. I still would go along with the no organ donation.
Right.
I think, I have written an end of life plan now, and I have specified the no organ donation, but I haven't put no blood transfusion in there.
So it's, yeah, but this is the thing, isn't it? And this is the concern sometimes with end of life planning. And I think it's maybe what prevents people doing it is once you've committed it to paper, what if you change your mind?
yeah,
And circumstances change throughout our whole life. So why wouldn't our view on something change too? And this is, I put a post up on Facebook literally a couple of days ago, and in it I put, you need to express your wishes, but then do annual reviews of that and keep it up to date. And it was actually to do with my mom's will and the fact that I hadn't got the most up to date one.
yes, I saw that post. That was interesting.
Yeah. But with you, again, had you committed it on paper, then it could have changed what was available to you.
Yeah, and that's where I guess the testing of the situation out is if you can actually change something, because obviously I've got full mental capacity. So that the fact that three of us sat and had a discussion, the doctor, my son, and myself. So I'm guessing you would be able to override that if it was
Yeah.
At the time. And I still think maybe had I got to the point where I wouldn't have benefited from it, then I think had it been in paper, I would have preferred that to be in place. But it is a big moot point.
Yeah.
And as I say, it was a big turning point for me. And without it, I don't think I would have come out, or I would have come out in a very sorry state. So,
but I understand then what you're saying about the fact that because you had full capacity to come back and, if you like, live your life the way that you had been, then you wanted to change your mind. But had you not got capacity and been to the point that really your life wouldn't be the life that you were used to living, then maybe you wouldn't have wanted to change it had it been on paper. And that's the point of the paperwork, isn't it? It's the paperwork, like your lasting powers, they don't actually come into effect, or they shouldn't come into effect until you've lost capacity and need somebody to speak on your behalf.
Yeah. And my sons are fully aware of my feelings. And I think, had it been the more serious option, I don't think my son would have insisted. But it was a very interesting conversation. When you're sat with someone who really loves you, wants you to stay, and you're feeling so weak, and basically, and it's a very interesting feeling that I was so at peace with my decision. It wasn't frightening or scary. I was quite happy just to very quietly fade away, but life is a strange thing, and things come at you that and I think this is the whole point about planning ahead of time, isn't it? And getting things in order that we actually don't know until we're in a situation, and we can't always envisage how we're going to feel until we actually face it.
I absolutely agree with you. So I do think the documents need to be dynamic so that they can be sort of changed as circumstances change, definitely. So then, I will pick my mouse up in a minute that I dropped a second ago, but from then you obviously had your cancer diagnosis. So what, can you sort of give some details on that if you're happy to?
Yeah, so yeah, I sort of trundled along and was starting to feel better, and thought, yeah, I'm going to set up a new life and I'd change my business and do something different. And then I was planning a road trip, a 3-month road trip through France and Spain. And about 3 months before that, in the June, I'd found a lump in my right breast when I was in bed one night. I was watching TV and I'd stretched my arms up like that, and I just kind of went like that and had an itch. I scratched and I thought, oh, I feel something there. And your first initial reaction, was no, that's nothing. I've just made that up. So I moved my hands away. And then as I'm watching telly, this little thought kept coming back in my head. And was it something? So of course my hand crept back and I thought, oh, I think there's something there. But I chose to ignore it. And I mentioned it to a few people who said you should get it checked out. And I thought, no, it can't be anything. I won't bother. I'm going to go on my road trip. And then literally about a month before my road trip, no, it wasn't even that. It was about 3 weeks before, I decided to go and get it checked. And as it turned out, it was a breast cancer. So I had a triple positive breast cancer. So that threw me into another whole array of emotions. And I still hadn't got anything in place by then, because it wasn't still quickly after the rest of the things that I still wasn't even in that mindset of I don't know whether the word is sensible, grown up, or in denial.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to get off and do my road trip. So
Did you go
I
on
had the
a road trip?
I did. So I saw the oncologist on the Friday afternoon, and I'd planned to go away on the next day on the Saturday. And so he gave me the diagnosis. It was 3 o'clock on the Friday afternoon, and I didn't really understand what he was saying because I didn't know anyone with breast cancer and all the terminology and the type. And he said, "Oh, we'll book you in for surgery for 2 weeks' time." And I said, "Well, no, because I'm going away for 3 months." And he looked at me and he said, "Well, I don't think you're going anywhere, my dear." And I said, "Well, I think I am." So anyway, we ended up having this debate. And he said, "Well, look, go away for 2 weeks, come back, and I'll book you in," because they wanted to put me in for surgery, chemo, radiation, and also an oral chemo and endocrine blockers. So I booked it in, not convinced, but I said I'd do it. And I said, "I'll go away." So I went home on the Friday, told all my family on the Friday and Saturday, and I left for France on the Sunday. I left everyone in absolute heaps. But,
Yeah, I can imagine. It's not really the news you want when somebody says, "This is what's happening. Oh, and bye. I'm going off now for a while." It must have been pretty shocking for everybody.
yeah, but I needed that time to think as well.
Mm.
So I was sat in sort of like day two. I was sat in just opposite Notre Dame in a beautiful little French, really old restaurant by the Shakespeare bookshop, having a beautiful table d'hote menu lunch with a little carafe of red wine with my friend, and sitting there thinking, "Oh, life's grand and this is beautiful and I'm enjoying it." And then a little voice came in my head and reminded me that I actually had breast cancer and what was I doing. So that really gave me a wake up call. So I drove through the night to Spain because I had an apartment booked in Spain, and I thought, right, I need to sort out what I'm going to do. So I got there at 3 in the morning. It was freezing cold because it was January, and well, no, actually, it wasn't January then. It was November. And I stayed until mid-January, and I sat on the beach with the gin and tonic thinking, right, this is my last gin and tonic. I really need to work out my plan as to have a holiday for 2 weeks or come up with a different solution. So I started coming up with a different solution, which I wanted to work with, which was more of a holistic approach because I really couldn't face going back into hospital again. There's more surgery and
So you didn't go back for the surgery?
no, I cancelled it all from Spain. Literally, I'd been over there 2 weeks, and the surgery was booked for the following week. So I phoned the oncology department and said, "Look, I'm not coming back. Can you give me 3 months? I want to see what I can find out for myself and see what route I want to take," because it was too quick. I didn't understand half of the implications of everything that was given to me. So I went and just holed up in my apartment like some drug addict coming off some strong drugs because I gave everything up. I had been on HRT, so I gave that up. I gave alcohol, sugar, tea, coffee, loads of food, and just started researching about what your body needs to heal if you're going to go the natural route, and what other protocols are out there other than the conventional. So I ended up doing that for 3 months, actually, well, 10 weeks. And I had an appointment with my oncologist back in the UK for 3 months. Hence, they agreed. They weren't very happy, but they booked me in, and I had a really good oncologist.
So then what happened when you came back? Because obviously you changed your lifestyle then really completely.
Yeah, completely changed my lifestyle. So I came back. While I was doing my research, I was having really severe migraines because I'd always been a migraine sufferer, but the detoxing I was doing had thrown me into permanent headaches and menopause and hot sweats and everything. But I came across a protocol called written by a guy called Max Gerson, the Gerson protocol. And he came across this protocol because he used to be a migraine sufferer himself. So I honed in on this and thought I'd like to learn more about it. So I started researching the Gerson therapy and found out they had 2 clinics in the world, one in Hungary and one in Mexico. So while I was in Spain, I contacted the Hungary clinic to see what they were about, and then discovered that this protocol is also really good for healing cancer. It's a very hard, strict protocol. So I contacted them, and they sent me this form, which was about 50 pages long. And I filled that in and sent it back to them and got accepted on their program for the January. So I flew back from Spain, I think about January the 10th, told everybody that, that I definitely wasn't going down the conventional route, and that I was off to Hungary to study this really mad protocol that no one had heard of. That's be one of the toughest in the world. And I was heading off there on the 24th of January for 2 weeks to this clinic. So that's what I did. So everyone,
very brave to me. Very brave to take a different course to what is the conventional course for the treatment of cancer.
Yeah, I did consult 4 different countries and 8 different consultants, 6 professionals in the cancer realm, and 2, one was an oncology nurse in America, and the other was a thermographer up in Liverpool. Those 2 were the ones that said, if you think you can do this your way, go for it. The 6 specialists, the medical specialists, all said some version of surgery, radiation, chemo, and drugs. They were all, no, you can't do this, you've got an aggressive cancer. So I figured that the 2 people on the ground, which was the thermographer who saw lots of breast imaging, and also a breast nurse that worked in America with natural healing, to me, they made the most sense to hold my line on it. So I didn't just pluck it out of the air. I did quite a Hungary and England and America. So I was delving into the pot from different countries and different thought processes. And yeah, I think I just had I had a true belief that I could do it.
Unfortunately, we seem to have an internet problem with just
never once. So for me, of my project, it gave me something to do.
Yeah, we've gone very robotic. We're not actually connecting properly at the moment. I don't know if you can hear me clearly or not.
Oh, you've come back.
There we go. Yeah, we're back again. Sorry, just missed the last bit. So my flow there, what was I saying? We're just saying about the fact that you'd obviously spoken to the different people, the 2 people were the ones you've gone with, and then you were talking about going to Hungary.
Yeah, so I was doing that, and my belief system in my ability to heal was so strong. I really truly believed that I could do it. I had no fear around it either, which was quite interesting. And now when I look back, and I talk to other people, I had no fear of the disease or the outcome. I just had a belief that I needed to do something different and that I could do it. So I just literally, that was my belief structure. So I put everything into that, and everything I researched followed that belief structure, that I would find a way through, which is what I did, and out of all the consultants, I say 2 versus 6, I went with the 2. And with me in the mix, and I'm 6 years cancer free now. So
and you did that all naturally?
All naturally, yes. So no conventional at all. So I haven't had any surgery, any radiation, no chemo, no endocrine blockers, no oral chemotherapy either, nothing at all. So I've done it completely holistically.
Wow.
I do take supplements, and I have regular, I put a lot of things in place, but there's no conventional treatment in there.
From this and what you did to heal yourself, you actually came up with the McCourt Method. Is that right?
Yes, I did. So I have a program called Breathing Space. So as we were chatting earlier, cancer is largely an environmental and lifestyle disease. They say 75 to 85% of cancers are caused by lifestyle and environmental. So that leaves 15%, or 5% genetic, and 10% they don't know. But if you look at that statistic, 3/4 plus of cancers are caused by lifestyle and environment. So for me, it made sense to believe that there is a way through this without going down the conventional, or at least giving it a chance before you make those big decisions of life-changing surgery and all the problems that come with that. So I wrote my program called Breathing Space, which is all about giving yourself the breathing space, which is the 3 months that I gave myself from my diagnosis for when I really made my decision on what path I was going to follow. So there's so much we can do in our lives to change that outcome. And, you know, we were talking about end of life. So, you know, there is a big correlation that you can actually change that outcome for yourself. And if you look at Cancer Research UK, they're talking about people born after 1960. You know, within our lifetimes, 1 in 2 people are going to get some form of a cancer diagnosis, you know, and that's any age group. That's taking it right up to 70s and 80s, but that's still a lot of people. 1 in 2 will get some form of diagnosis. So for me, you know, if you can start reviewing your life when you're fit and well,
Yeah.
or even heading into sort of health problems, which a lot of us do once we start hitting that middle age, because our bodies just don't bounce back.
Yes.
And when I look back at my life, that if I'd have had the mindset I have now, there's a lot I could have done, I think, to have headed that off.
Well, I was looking at a friend of mine on Facebook recently, Susie Evans, and she was actually doing a video on the after effects of, if you like, cancer treatments. So again, breast cancer. She did some modeling at one point, obviously sort of showing the breast removed, etc., and really trying to help people with the journey that she's been on. And yeah, the video last night was all about the after effects of it, and that they're still ongoing all these years later, which, yeah, was quite eye-opening. I hadn't realised maybe just how big an effect the treatment has, you know, continuing on after the treatment has finished. So with you, is there anything sort of affecting you now from the cancer that was there before? Is it all completely gone?
Yeah, I'm very healthy. I have checks every year. I do thermography every year. I have blood tests every year. I consult with a naturopathic doctor every year. I take my supplements. I've recently done a test called the RGCC test, known as the Greek test, which actually counts circulating tumor cells in your blood. We've all got them in our blood, or most of us have. It just depends on the levels. So, you know, I get those checked, and then you can take supplements specifically for your own DNA. So there's so much testing out there in the when I say alternative world, it's not really alternative, it's just not mainstream pharmaceutical. And I'm not against the pharmaceutical industry. No, they saved my life with the appendix. But I think there's so much we can do on this holistic approach to healing that you know that you can patch in, and even do, you know, an integrative approach. I think what we need is to view the whole thing and maybe patch it all in a little better, because it's not for everyone to do what I did. You know, I had my reasons because I couldn't face going back into hospital. But as you were saying, from someone who goes down the conventional, you get things like neuropathy, you get nerve pain in your hands and feet, you lose your fingernails. A lot of the surgery doesn't heal well. You get radiation burns to your lungs. There's so much that can go wrong with conventional. And again, I'm not wanting to frighten anyone, because everyone goes through their journey. But for me, I haven't got any of that, because I haven't.
People's lives are prolonged due to the treatments that they get, and wouldn't be if they didn't. So, as you say, it's just showing a different option, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
Something that worked for you, not necessarily work for other people, and vice versa. But I do think everything has its place.
Yeah.
We don't have any experience to say either way, but it's very interesting just to hear, you know, the very, very short version of your story. So if somebody was interested to find out more about what you're doing, the McCourt Method Breathing Space, where do they go? How do they find you?
Okay, I have a website, which is the McCourtMethod.com. And on there, I have I've done some videos on my journey. I have my breathing space program on there. There's if you sign up, you can get I wrote a little short paper on what is cancer, so that gives you a lot of the thinking behind it, how it causes it, you know, how it's a whole body thing. You know, and I'm a great believer in, you don't catch cancer like you do a cold or anything else. It's something that's formed from within. So, you know, you need to look at it like that, not a battle. It's something that you've created. So why? So I've written a little paper on that, which if you sign up, you send me your email address, you get that for free. And there's a couple of things on there. I'm also on Facebook under Jane McCourt. I also have the McCourt Method on Facebook, but I do a lot on my private page. So I can be found as Jane McCourt is public.
And if somebody wanted to just drop you an email, what was your email address?
The McCourt Method at gmail.com.
Lovely. Well,
That's
it's been really nice to speak with you, Jane. Thank you very much for your time.
Well, thank you too, Dale.
And I'll speak to you again soon.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.